Imagine pitching a game in the last few years thinking that you had the most by committee design of a game on paper that would shatter all the established pillars in today's world because you thought you were just being so forward thinking. Let's make a story driven linear third person action game, but it stars a woman. No, wait, even better, she's a knight. Also, it's not a fantasy world, but it's set in the real world. So she's a knight in Italy in 1348. What's that? Female knights never existed? Well, you're fired. Anyway, so the idea is we're gonna have this totally real concept of a female knight defeat dozens of fully grown men in Italy. Also, get this, she's going to be, wait for it, a lesbian. I know. Hold the applause, please. I can only take so much praise. But wait, it gets even better. What if we make the point of the game be that our lesbian knight has to save her lover? You see, it's like the classic knight and damsel in distress story, but it's more progressive. But also, we're going to give everyone British accents because that totally makes sense geographically. Sure, it takes place in Italy, but we like British accents better. It's actually because British actors cost less, but we're not going to admit that. No, it doesn't make any sense either way. And if you point that out as well, you're just being a hater. But you know what Ex Voto was really missing? More lesbians. I'm not even kidding. Look at this from PC Games N. 2026's lesbian night game 1348 Ex Voto is short on lesbians. As it says below the title there, the problem is that the game just wasn't gay enough. That's it, guys. We didn't go far enough. Yeah, we only warped the fabric of history and willed our story into existence despite the fact that none of this would ever exist in 1348 Italy, but no. We just didn't go far enough now, did we? Well, the writer of this amazing article is Nat Smith. Don't harass them, but they are truly someone with the highest of IQs. I mean, come on, just listen to this opening paragraph which reads, I've got a bone to pick with the internet, specifically the corner of the internet that's very angry 1348 Ex Voto exists. You see, all this time, I've been unironically referring to it by its alternative title, coined by its earliest detractors, the Lesbian Night game. It's a neat shorthand for a story-driven action-adventure that doesn't have the most memorable name. It's also wildly inaccurate. Hilarious that you refer to Ex Voto the same way everyone else does, while also self-owning yourself by saying that it's wildly inaccurate. Because I know you mean it another way, but it's still hilarious nevertheless. But anyways, as the journal then says is seen here, apparently the makers of Ex Voto didn't mark the game as LGBT with a tag on Steam, which is true, I mean, as seen here. Looking at Ex Voto Steam tags, it does not show up that way. However, it is funny and weird that the game is labeled instead as political near the bottom there, and it also has tags like post-apocalyptic, which that one doesn't make any sense. The game is not set during an apocalypse, it's also set in the past, so how can it be post if it's not in the future? Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Look, the entire game is kind of a mess, and again, its Metacritic score is horrendously bad as well. So any real defense of the Lesbian Night game can easily be broken because not even the industry that runs damage control for the game could even come together and agree that it was any good to begin with, which is why the whole notion of we need to defend this game against, I guess, the online chuds comes off as even more stupid to me, because why defend slop when you yourselves agreed that it was slop as well? You can't even deny that what I'm saying is untrue. Look at the Metacritic score right here. It's a 54 out of 100. Yeah, that's abysmally bad. The user score is horrific, but the one I really want to point out again is that critic score, because by definition, that means that the gaming press did not like this game at all collectively. So again, I ask, why defend it like this? Like, even look at DualShockers' review of the Lesbian Night game here, right? A 4 out of 10. They call the entire thing flawed, it's underbaked, and that it's bad. It's confusing. Why you would defend a turd when you know deep down that it is one? But I guess the more I read PC Game N's defense article of the Lesbian Night game, the more it all starts to make sense. Because the people defending this game don't even understand the absolute state of the real world or its laws in which a game like this would even be placed. How do I know? Easily. Let me read you this paragraph from PC Game N's own article, which says, and no, I'm not kidding, Aieta's gender nonconformity and Bianca's defiance of the feudal hierarchy invite queer readings, but Ex Voto remains remarkably platonic. It's the opposite of Sappho and her friend. It never even stoops to the conventions of courtly love, a missed opportunity in a story that puts an unconventional medieval knight at its center. Ayeta carries Bianca's titular Ex Voto, much like a knight's love token. Yet we never see so much as a tender brush of hands. Oh my god, dude. Tell me you know nothing about the time period that this game is set in without telling me PC Games Zen. Like, come on, dude. So a little history lesson, because the games journalists are being morons again. I like, to anyone's surprise, really. So you see, back in the day, especially in medieval times, things like being in love with the same gender was seen as blasphemous. That's not me being a bigot. That's how it was. It was considered a sin for a man to love a man, or a woman to do the same. Even the insinuation that such a romance was happening was largely considered enough to be justifiable evidence for extreme punishment. That's putting it lightly. For example, in Kingdom Come 2, Henry can be gay with Hans, which is still one of the stupidest implementations of two characters being gay, because Hans is a womanizer, but they had to pander somehow, I guess. But at the very least in Kingdom Come 2, when it came to the gay romance option, it was treated as forbidden on purpose. Meaning that it couldn't be something that Henry and Hans in Kingdom Come 2 could just like walk out and show in public, or have anyone really know what was actually going on between them, right? Because again, it was something that if it was discovered, it would have resulted in extreme punishment for both men. Similarly here with Ayeta and Bianca. There would never be the option to show them actually holding hands in public, no less, because of the state of the world that they lived in. Especially since Bianca was lowborn, it would be a double whammy sin that would likely result in Bianca probably being executed. And having PC Game End's journalist here said, but why didn't they hold hands? Why is there no kissing? Why is there no cuddling? That tells me that this journalist here does not understand the thing they're trying to defend in the first place. Because they're looking at this romance as a concept not through the eyes of the time period that it exists in, but instead they're looking at it through their modern audience sensibilities and much safer setting that they live in now. And they're upset that the game doesn't adhere to their 2026 beliefs in a game that is set in 1348, for crying out loud. This is why I say that most of games journalism is not equipped to speak on even half the things they do, because these people can't even realize that most of the time that their own words can be used against them to prove how intellectually out of their own depth they are at the best of times. We unironically just witnessed a games journalist say, the game is about two lesbians in medieval times. Why is there no scissoring? Oh, this is boring. You can't be serious. This is why every day, right, the credibility of games journalism just erodes further and further, because the people tasked to be the shield, they can't even figure out how to hold the thing in the first place. And how do I know that they're dumb? This is what they say next. Medieval records of lesbianism are scarce, but we know that they existed. The church's penitentials are evidence enough and explain why artistic renditions of love between women in this time period are cloaked in the euphemism of intimate friendship. No such threat is hanging over the heads of the Ex Voto development team. Perhaps Sedlio's reticence to go full lesbian in an era that didn't have a term for it is a signifier of its commitment to historical accuracy. It also reads as cowardice to the very audience it's targeting. Thank you for proving to everyone, PC Games Zen, that you are not equipped to understand even the slightest bits of nuance when it comes to the things that you supposedly champion. Because what do you mean they didn't go full lesbian in a game set in a time period where you even admit they didn't have a term for two women who were in love during that era of time?
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
And then going as far as to call it cowardice to the very audience that they're targeting. These people are real, by the way. The author of this piece, unfortunately, has the same level of voting power as you, need I remind everyone, when they shouldn't even be allowed to hit publish before at least like 10 people proofread due to the moronic takes alone here that I'm finding. This journalist actually thinks the game is not lesbian enough unless Ayeta and Bianca are like scissoring and just like checking each other's pH levels in between like each chapter, you know? Otherwise the whole thing is just for naught, I guess.
I clapped when I saw them too.
Like, tell me that you read smut novels without telling me, like, good lord, dude, the absolute state of games media is cooked these days. Somehow, this wasn't even the worst part of the article, because this next paragraph that PC Games End compares Ayeta to Super Mario. I wish I was kidding, but like, look at this, dude. The public outcry against a woman with a bowl cut and little else is a amusing on its own merit. It's compounded once you consider gaming's own history. Ayeta doggedly follows in the footsteps of the most celebrated chivalric knight in video games, Mario. He's not a knight, by the way. In each of Ex Voto's 9 chapters, she trudges through a new location towards a point of interest, only to reach it and discover that her princess is in another castle, sometimes literally. Nintendo has tempered the romance between Mario and Princess Peach in recent years, presumably to fortify its family-friendly image. But even the most honorable plumber receives a peck on the cheek for all of his trouble. God forbid Mario had been a butch electrician. Again, I need to remind you that these people have the same voting power as you, and that should concern you greatly. This writer played 1348 Ex Voto and saw that Bianca wasn't immediately by Ayeta's side the entire time, right? Like, you know, the entire point of this game's plot, by the way, is that she's looking for Bianca, right? And then you immediately went, wow, this is like that Super Mario game, because I know what that is.
I know what that is!
And then claiming that Mario is only liked because he isn't a butched electrician is kind of hilarious, because one, nobody finds Mario handsome. He's just a little platformer guy. And why did you say electrician? Mario's a plumber. Wait a second. Did PC Games End's journalists here just admit that they thought Mario was an electrician instead of a plumber? Jesus, dude. I feel like I'm losing brain cells while reading this. How does this continue to get worse the further I go in? This writer thinks that Mario isn't a plumber. How do these people get jobs in the games industry? I have no idea. But the next paragraph is seen here. This journalist then complains that the game is bad despite defending it the entire article, because the lovers in this game only get about 15 minutes of screen time between them. Well, yes, you see, that is because Sedlio, that's the developers of the game, decided to have a twist where Bianca turns out to be the main villain of the game. Spoilers, I guess. Who really cares? And that Bianca was the one who led the bandits into the village in the beginning, slaughtering everyone because Bianca wanted to live, and no, I'm not kidding, a life of power and luxury in exchange, which is really stupid, but that is actually the plot, and I am not lying to you. So the entire events of the game, right, and all the innocent lives that are lost because of Bianca, which Ayeta at the end of the story defeats Bianca in a duel, and then ends her instead of forgiving her, which is probably the only knightly thing Ayeta does the entire game. So naturally, because of this moronic twist that they wanted and the stupid story, Bianca can't reasonably exist alongside Ayeta, otherwise this twist they wanted doesn't work. Sure, they could have had Bianca show up in flashbacks between the chapters, I guess, but this game needed more time to fix itself either way, so it doesn't matter ultimately because the whole thing falls apart anyways. Look at the way PC Game ends their article, by the way. With more time and money, 1348 Ex Voto could have been the next Hellblade. Sedlio has clearly aspired to replicate the same kind of experience, immersing players in a specific time and place for Ayeta's journey to unfold. On paper, it's a great concept. The execution, however, leaves a lot to be desired. Given the Middle Ages' deep-rooted associations with radical conservatism, the intense backlash against an indie game that centers on a sapphic knight is unsurprising. The real surprise, however, is Sedlio's reluctance to fully commit to the story it wants to tell, one that leaves even the most liberal lesbian walking away feeling shortchanged. Oh my god, what's wrong, PC Games Nat Smith here? The game wasn't bashing conservatives enough for you now too, really? And it didn't harbor to your 2026 agenda once, despite the fact that the game is being set in a time period hundreds of years ago? I speak for everyone when I say that you should never really be allowed to publish another article until at least 5 people proofread your takes for holes and contrivances first. Because all this article did was make me think less of PC Games End as a website now, knowing that they allowed such a travesty to be posted as a pushback to players, no less. This is the same kind of writer where they could write about a lesbian story set in Islam back in the day, and they would still complain and say, well, why didn't the lesbian lovers hold hands in the markets in the middle of Baghdad or something? What's the worst that would happen to them? Again, right? These people, man, they have the same voting power as you, and that should really scare you. That such NPCs unironically exist and walk amongst us all is all the fuel I need to know that so much in this world needs to be fixed due to the deluge of idiocracy we have to subjugate ourselves to on a daily basis. Just living with people like this in our society. Again, all of this for a game that on Steam, as seen here, peaked at just about 400 or so players at launch. Yes, it's a single player game. I understand people move on once they're done. Either way, where was the support day one? After all, you had tweets like this about Ex Voto, which which said, imagine announcing your misogynistic medieval game, they mean Knight's Path, and then this is announced on the same day. And look at that engagement, right? 43,000 likes with over 2 million people viewing that trailer via the tweet. All of those people liking that tweet about Ex Voto being, oh, it's so cool and progressive, yet none of them showed up when it mattered for that game, really, and this keeps happening. It will also continue to happen because social media does not equal success, and that is very clear. As this person commented to that same post, your post has like 10 times more likes than it had all-time peak of players.
Finger licking good special.
And I mean, they're not wrong. Where are all the people? Why don't you guys show up to support the games you like tweets for on Twitter? I thought we were here to own the chuds. I specifically remember many of these accounts wanting this game to succeed for that very reason, so why didn't that happen? And I found this tweet funny, which also said, I'm so sad about the Lesbian Night game. Hilarious. They even referred to it the same way I do. Incredible even. Comments had more likes than players too, unfortunately. Why are they sad? As seen here, the game is buggy, unfinished, it's crashing people's laptops. But don't worry guys, as long as all of these obvious problems get fixed, which shouldn't have been their day one, then it'll be great guys, don't worry about it. What's incredible is that the slop coming out of the West doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon, but then you look at the East, right? The business there is booming. Look at this from Eurogamer. In an industry beset by layoffs and crunch, Japanese publisher Atlus is raising salaries and working to reduce fixed overtime. So to keep it simple, Atlus is raising the income of their employees by 15% per employee and reducing overtime hours for everyone from 30 hours to 20, meaning people will be paid more to work less. Atlus, by the way, that's like Persona, Metaphor, Shin Megami Tensei, those kinds of games. And you don't see this happen in the West at all these days, right? The games industry in the West is constantly falling apart. And again, it doesn't help when the games they try to prop up are about fake lesbian knights in Italy with British accents fighting fully grown men in armed combat. Truly, the kind of elevator pitch of a game that will sell millions of copies, guys, absolutely. While the West continues to just lay people off and release flop after flop like the East, as Eurogamer puts it here, the shocker is how Asian developers are doubling down on staff retention and paying attention to the value of having experienced workers accelerate new game projects, which has resulted in certain franchises putting out new entries at a rapid pace, especially when compared to the general slowness of Western AAA game development. Exactly. Key words there, by the way, staff retention and the value of having experienced workers. Like, that is the key there. That is why Asian game development keeps annihilating the West like almost always. 1348 was apparently made by ex-veteran developers in the Western games industry. But based on what was made, you would be justified in questioning that because what was made does not feel like it was done by experienced hands. Yet why is it in the East? The games do well, they review well and all that, because unlike the West, the East actually cares about their developers, at least more than everywhere else, right? Like in the West, people live, like these live studios, they all die all the time, right? Like layoffs happen almost always and they lose retention and everything. The actual loss of these really seasoned developers is the reason why these games don't do well, because they launch broken games and unfinished ones too, like the Lesbian Night game did. Look at what Atlus said themselves here. This is all being done to foster the creativity and improve the productivity of every individual employee, arguing that investment in human resources is absolutely essential in order to keep delivering inspirational experiences to their audience. Despite the fluctuations in external factors such as rising prices, we will aim to support our employees so they can live stable lives and provide them with an environment where they could work with a greater sense of security. You will never hear that from the West because it doesn't exist. All you're going to get is AAA gambles that either end as a success, a massive failure like a High Guard, or random releases like your Ex Votos that fail to meet anyone's expectations. I'm so sick of the way that Western games have been going, right? Even the journalism as well. It's just politics, politics, politics all of the time. Nothing else matters, and it never frankly works, and they keep doing it. How many times in the West have like a bunch of people been brought together, they make a game, they finally figure out how to work together, and then once the game gets shipped, everyone leaves the studio to other studios, and then they basically have to like restart the studio in a sense every single time another game comes out. It doesn't make any sense to me why that happens all the time in the West, yet it keeps happening anyways. It's so ridiculous, and that's what they said, right? The Western development is so behind Eastern in terms of game releases? Because the East actually retains that, like the people themselves. So when they make new games, those people are still there. So they already know how to work together. So it's already like a well-oiled machine release after release. That's why in the West, they don't do that, right? It's like basically a new team every single time they make a game. So no wonder it takes like 5 years or like 10 years for some people to make a single game, because they're basically starting from over all the time. It's ridiculous. And the fact that these journalist types can't really fathom or understand why this bait slop sort of gaming like Ex Voto fails every time proves to me that they're never going to learn. Because the real issue here isn't simply that the Lesbian night game failed to capture a large audience. The issue is they, as in the games industry and journalists, fail to understand is they always forget to ask why. Players today, they're more experienced than ever, and I mean that. They have seen the formulas, and they can easily recognize the design patterns that these people are using. And even then, Ex Voto doubles down, believing that its graphics or its cutscenes could salvage the rest. But they don't realize that people want engaging systems in depth, right? These games are made in a vacuum. They're like in a state of toxic positivity from the beginning. That they also require obviously years to make before the market can even respond to what these people are making. And then once these games get revealed and the final result fails to capture the attention that they thought it was going to get or seeks, the entire thing just collapses under its own weight. And that's why the story of this game of 1348 Ex Voto matters right now. Not because it is the biggest failure the industry's ever seen. No, Concord and Highguard and more are much worse in terms of failures than this, I admit. But what this game still illustrates is a growing disconnect, right, between the way games are made and want to be pushed versus what the players actually want these days. Like, studios continue to push and build these games based on the assumption that no longer reflects the reality that we all live in. And these publishers that keep pushing these games without addressing the problems that hold them back, it just keeps happening. And honestly, as long as this continues to keep going the way it is, we're just going to keep seeing more situations exactly like this happen again and again. Inevitably, another game will be announced, right? It'll look cinematic, it'll promise to be the next amazing virtuous thing hitting all the checkboxes, and it will fail again. And as long as the industry continues to not learn from failures like your 1348 Ex Votos, the more that the next failure will be even more catastrophic by comparison, and then the journalists can defend them all they want. Throw all logic and pattern recognition out the window, it will still not matter. This backlash is deserved. It's not because the game is about a gay story, it's because it's a bad video game. And the industry's unwillingness to accept that their way is not working anymore is why it keeps happening. So go ahead, make another Ex Voto. Hell, make 50 of them. The Asian developers will keep having their salaries raised, their talent kept happy and fed, and also retained, while the West becomes malnourished, lost and mad, and keeps restarting their studios after every freaking game they release, dude. So we'll see what shoe drops first, but we both know the answer to that, don't we? Stop making slop games, and if you want to, then don't get mad when the obvious ends up happening again. But what do you think? Let me know. Subscribe if you'd like to. See you in the next one. And Super Mario isn't an electrician. He's a plumber. These people are idiots, dude.